Welcome to the Holosky podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Steven.
And Kyle.
And today, Kyle is going to dive into the wild world of gang stalking, probably just scratch the surface. But we've talked about this topic and doing an episode on it quite a bit in our Discord and such. And Kyle has started to compile some information. So this should be super interesting.
It'd be fun.
Yeah. First, we got to get through all the business, though. Check us out on all our social medias, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Discord, Reddit. Anywhere that you can be social, search up the Holosky podcast and come and hang out with us. Just share weird stuff. You know the drill. Just be part of the community. It's a pretty rad thing we got going on. If you have a paranormal encounter you'd like for us to feature in a future episode, Kyle's got all the details you need.
You can call or text the holophone, which is going to be 1-618-556-0837. You can also write your stories out, shoot them over to the email. You can use your voice memo apps on your smartphones, record yourself, shoot that over to the email, which is going to be holoskypodcast@gmail.com. Any way that you choose to record yourself, just try to get it to us in one way, shape, or another. And we will get it on the show eventually.
Hell yeah, we will. There's all kinds of ways you can support the show if that's something you're interested in. First and foremost, definitely share us word of mouth. Tell all your friends that listen to podcasts, anybody that's into weird, paranormal, strange, creepy, unexplained, mysterious, esoteric, the occult, anything like that. Shoot them our name. Get us out there. Get our listener base to keep growing. You guys have been doing awesome work, and we appreciate it. And let's not tap the brakes on it. Just keep putting our name out there. We have a Patreon. If you'd like to support us that way, check out all the tiers. We go from $1 to $10. A bunch of whole different kind of stuff we offer there. Extra episodes and content, stickers and merch and shirts and all kinds of stuff. We have a Venmo. If you'd like to throw some monster money, toss a little change in there to keep us going. We appreciate all of you for that. And you can leave us a 5-star rating and review, which I will find and shout out. But today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to shout out a local business because that's what it's all about. Our friend Noretta is a big fan of the show, Patreon member. She's super awesome. She has a business here in our hometown of Jerseyville called Three Sisters Apothecary and Yoga Studio. So anybody local, go check it out. They sell teas, all kinds of cool stuff. Definitely go and take a walk through their shop. For those that aren't local, they have a website. It's www.3, like the number 3, sisterstea.com. They have all kinds of stuff over there. You can order tea that they'll ship out. Definitely check it out. And Noretta, thank you so much for supporting the show and being such an awesome listener.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Yeah, definitely. So from there, we are going to go into our listener encounter here. It's kind of an encounter, but it's also like a question.
Okay.
So I figured I'd throw it out here and we can talk about it a little bit.
Might as well.
It's from our friend Alfred. He says, "Hey guys, I have a question. I grew up in a home in Phoenix, Arizona. My family and I experienced a lot of paranormal activity in that home. Friends and family that did not believe in that stuff would often change their minds after coming over. We lived in that home from 2001 to 2012. We still very often speak about the things that happened there. I've thought about writing a letter to the current owner of that home to see if they have experienced anything paranormal at all, or was it just my crazy family? Do you guys think that's a good idea? Hope to hear from you guys, and if you're interested in hearing of any of my stories, I would love to tell you guys." Well, Alfred, first off, thanks for taking the time to write in. Secondly, we are totally interested in hearing your stories. So
For sure.
get them to us, send us an email, message us on social media, however you choose to do so. And we will gladly feature them. If you have a lot of stories, we could even have you on the show possibly to talk about them. But on to your question. I think it depends on what kind of relationship you have with the current owners, I feel.
Same.
So if
I feel it's kind of wishy-washy for me.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't know. It's just a weird be a weird thing to be contacted about. Like if my previous owners contacted me and was like, "Hey, have you guys had anything fucking weird happen in the house since we've moved out?" There's that part of me, like if something fucked up has happened, I'd almost be like, "And you fucking knew?
Didn't warn me?"
Yeah, come
I was
on.
thinking the same thing.
Come on."
If you have some sort of like correspondence and relationship with him, I would bring it up in passing. But if like if you've sold the house to these people and you haven't talked to them since, or if it's changed hands multiple times, I don't necessarily know that I would shoot them a letter being like, "Yo, weird shit happening in there," because if it is, we feel ya.
Yeah, it's a weird one to be put in.
I agree. I think, like I said, it all depends on if you have some sort of communication with the owners now.
Yeah.
That would be something you bring up probably in passing. But if I like got a letter from somebody that I didn't know and they're like, "Hey, is your house haunted? Did you got weird shit going on?" I'd be like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we stand on that. But definitely hit us up. Shoot us a message on any of the socials. Email us. Text the holophone. And shoot your stories over, and then we will feature them on a future show. So Kyle is ready to dive in, scratch the surface on some of this gang stalking. Which it is.
It's a weird one. It's a weird
trying
one
to figure out. Yeah, let's just go.
Yep, we got to do this.
Let's go for it.
So I usually try to kind of preface some of my episodes and my logic behind it, and we've had a couple people reach out on the subject matter. It's never really been too forward in our like agenda, like what we're trying to or what we typically research. Me and Steve have talked about it a few times, just very subtly, but it always seems to be overtaken by a plethora of things. But when these couple individuals got a hold of us and we talked to them a little bit, their stories are pretty fucking similar. They claim to be in different parts of the country, but the similarities are there for sure. But for me personally, it is one of the harder subjects for me to wrap my brain around. Not that it's not real, it's just that some of the aspects don't make sense to me, because you'll have people come forward with these situations that have seemingly done nothing to deserve it. So there are certain scenarios that make sense to me, and then there are other ones that don't. And I foresee us getting into those conversations throughout this episode. So I basically went about researching this almost like I'm looking for the first time in my life. I've never heard anything about it. I want to know why this happens, when, where, everything about it. So I kind of looked at it from that point, almost like a learning curve type situation. So what is gang stalking? Apparently it's spelled out in the name itself. It's more or less a group of people who follow, harass, and victimize a particular individual. Reasons why someone could be gang stalked it seems to be plentiful. It seems like it could be for any possible reason. A few examples are, which this even here is just bizarre to me. People attribute it to possible examples could be a difference in core beliefs, racism, lifestyle choices, you name it. Like it just seems plentiful. And some of these, this is where it's so wishy-washy strange to me, because that shit doesn't make sense to me on a personal level. That doing what I would be known as gang stalking for any of those three that I just said don't make fucking sense at all. It is insane to me. But there are it's clear to note a few things. This isn't taking shots at anyone, but let's be honest, some of these stories, as me and Steve have discussed, some of them sound fucking crazy, right? Like some of them they're pretty out there. And it's a world, and I understand that, like, in this world that me and Steve live right now, I mean, everything's pretty fucking crazy. In our last episode, we talked about unscrewing a robot's head. So, like, the world is crazy, right?
It's almost like it's a terror tactic, is what it boils down to.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're trying to make an individual's life as miserable as possible, and when they essentially try to describe what's going on, the activities and the harassment and everything almost makes them seem like they are crazy.
Yeah.
There's this weird fine line between paranoids like schizophrenia and gang stalking, and those lines mesh together, and there's this gray area. And I forget who said the quote, but they said, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you.
Yeah, and that's a great way to put it too.
That, like, I've heard of everything from, like Kyle stated, if it's just even different core beliefs to trying to ruin people financially, just make their lives so miserable, like to the point to where they're making you miss work, and they're making you too afraid to leave your apartment so you can't keep a job, and it just gets stacked worse and worse and worse until inevitably, the person just doesn't leave, or even worse.
Yeah, and it's so hard for me to wrap my brain around this subject. It's just, a lot of it doesn't make sense. And so I actually found where a psychologist looked into some of the aspects of gang stalking, and they approached it pretty unbiased, it seems. And it like Steve said, sometimes, whether it's factual or not, some people actually end up getting diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, and that's not to say that they are. It's just, that is a medical terminology that someone could put on the actual situation. But these notes were taken from Psychology Today, and they cut apart the two here, which I find rather fascinating, because the person cuts it into basically the delusion side of it, the paranoid schizophrenic side, and the actual conspiracy side. And they say the delusion is a belief that is contradicted by objective evidence or is at a variance with what most other people believe, and that is typically preoccupying, held with extreme and unassailable conviction, and influences one behavior to a significant degree. And then you have the conspiracy side of things, and I quote again, reject the authoritative account of reality in favor of some plot involving a group of people with malevolent intent that is deliberately kept secret from the public. And then from there, I kind of went down this angle of, okay, so the way that I had been reading it at this point is that we're going to kind of go with the aspect that it's real. It's happening to you. So I write, so you piss a group of people off. Now what? Well, this gang of people start to harass you every way they can. Some of the tactics they employ are as follows: repeatedly following someone, repeatedly threatening someone, unwanted phone calls, text messages, threatening voicemails, approaching the victim at their workplace, grocery stores, etc., leaving threatening notes for the victim to find, sometimes leaving objects for the victim to find, breaking into their home or car. So, with all that, it seems that most of their tactics are, like Steve had said, of a psychological nature. They like to make it to where the victim gets to the point where they lose credibility in society, where they appear as crazy or deranged. And with that statement in mind, like whenever these cases had presented themselves to me and Steve, and we talked about it, that's what one thing Steve had explained to me was that the whole end goal of gang stalking is to make the person lose credibility in society, or more so to appear like they're crazy, which will in turn take away from their standing in the public or standing anywhere. And so that makes the line between mental health and what is actually going on extremely thin. You know what I mean? Because say you're not crazy, say you are being followed, you are being fucked with. And for a lot of people that is hard to grasp, right? Like if I talk to a plethora of my friends who are not in this world that me and Steve walk, and I were to tell them, dude, I think the local PD is out to get me. They keep fuck with me. My tires are constantly flat. My shed doors are always left open. I'm getting weird phone calls. I'm getting letters dropped off in my mail. Like, most people are gonna be like, Kyle's losing his shit. Like, Kyle's losing his shit, man.
Yep.
Like it especially if you fall in the claim that the local police department's doing it. But then some people take it even farther, and you'll have Mark from the grocery store, and Shannon from the gas station, and then Billy from the movie mart. All these people are the ones fucking with me. They're the ones coming after me, which makes way less sense to me. And I'm not saying that these things don't happen. I'm just looking at it from my set of eyes here. Like, that is so hard for me to wrap my brain around. Because even, I'm sure I get into it in a little bit, but like, it says that sometimes like families take up a gang stalking mentality and methodology to fuck with other family members. So the question I would ask with that is, are they doing it knowingly that they're doing gang stalking, or is it just like this whole like pack mentality amongst the family that they're just singling out the odd family member? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Because I could see how what they're doing could be considered gang stalking, but are they doing it on purpose? Like with the intent of, hey, let's gang stalk Steve.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
When essentially they're doing the same thing,
but they're just doing it because they're being assholes.
Yeah.
So, like I said, if they're successful in this, the victim is deemed crazy. Some things being forced to, or sometimes being forced to undergo mental and psychological evaluations. Some of the other counts of tactics are the gang doing the same activities as the victim. When they enter a place, so doesn't the person following them. Same when they exit. The gang records private conversations. They film them in private settings, which that right there gets into very interesting waters. If they're able to record private conversations and film them in private settings, that for me crosses a whole new line. Like, that's not just someone, in my opinion, that's not being paranoid schizophrenic.
No, that's
somebody fucking
being
with.
fucked with.
Yes, 100%.
Which is like the biggest issue, because like,
especially if they, I'll preface that because of the conversations we've had, especially if these said people do not or should not have access to those settings.
Yeah.
Because, we've had conversations where it's been like a girlfriend or an employee. Okay, so maybe said employee has come over and had access to your internet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll rule that shit out.
It's so hard to differentiate the two, because like there are a lot of instances where even the government has taken part in operations that essentially fall in to the same like waters as gang stalking.
Right.
You know, like even almost like MK Ultra and shit
Yeah.
would fall into that.
Yep.
They talk about like using EMF and microwave weapons to attack people to where they produce illnesses and anxiety and sleep deprivation, and they hear weird shit and it causes like body pains, and these are all kinds of things that kind of fall in with people who've experienced gang stalking too. Like, I forget, there was a whole YouTube channel where this couple they were either farmers or ranchers, and they were nearby a military base, Air Force base, Army base, something. And they were completely convinced that whatever is going on in this military base is fucking with them. Started killing their animals. Their animals died off. Then their crops died off. And then the two, they videoed it the entire time. Their like health starts to deteriorate. One of them gets sick, and then the other one gets sick, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And the whole time they're asking people if they can hear what they're hearing, these radio waves and shit, and they try to record it and put it on YouTube, but you can't hear anything. But they're experiencing it, and it just gets so weird.
But see, for me, that makes sense. Like, that has at least a plausible solution or explanation would be a better word there. Because, like you said, you hit it on the head earlier. MK Ultra, right? So what they could be going through could more or less be some type of fucked up experiment, right? Or a byproduct of what's actually going on inside the military base. You know, they could be testing something and unknowingly
It affecting these people. And
absolutely, 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
And here's another kind of fucked up situation. It says sometimes the gang will frame someone as being the one responsible for doing all of the nefarious shit.
Oh, that even adds another layer onto it.
Exactly. So, you know, they could lead me to the conclusion that it's Steve fucking with me, even though it's not Steve fucking with me, but I think it is. And now I'm going to accuse him of doing that.
And there
which makes me look crazy.
And there are actual accounts of people that think they're being targeted by this specific individual, and they'll go out and retaliate, even murder these people that didn't have anything to do with it, but the gang stalkers made it seem like they were responsible for it. And now the gang stalker's intended victim, their life are ruined because they just went out and murdered somebody.
Yeah.
And now they're in prison forever.
Yes, I mean, so, you know, their end product there, whether it be crazy or just ruin you, is done. Their mission accomplished.
And the techniques and everything have been used, like I said, over and over again. MK Ultra.
Yeah.
The COINTELPRO, which was the counterintelligence program, conducted by the FBI from 1956 to 1971 to discredit and neutralize organizations considered to be subversive to the U.S. political stability. It was a covert and often used extra-legal means to criminalize various forms of political struggle and derail several social movements, especially those for civil rights and Puerto Rican independence. The operations were initiated against various organizations, including the Communist Party, Socialist Worker Party, Puerto Rican Nationalist Party, Black Panther Party, American Indian Movement, Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and the Ku Klux Klan.
Jesus, that does sound like a bunch of racist shit.
Tactics included intense surveillance, organizational infiltration, anonymous mailings, and police harassment. These programs were exposed in 1971 to the Citizens Commission to investigate the FBI. When the Citizens Commission to investigate the FBI burglarized an FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania, and stole these confidential files, then released them to the press. More info was later obtained through the Freedom of Information Act, lawsuits lodged against the FBI by the Black Panther Party and the Socialist Worker Party, and statement by agents who came forward to convince their counterintelligence activities. So this is essentially like the anonymous mailings and the police harassment and all this shit.
It's more or less proof that it has taken place.
Yeah, and that it is out there and it does happen.
Yeah.
And this is fully political. It has no
Yeah.
other reason than just political.
Yeah,
And I
like,
love that they
that happens. Like that matches with what I said in the beginning about like your race, your lifestyle, your core belief values, and that right there. I mean, that's nail on the head.
I love that they use the term extra legal. They use extra legal means.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Like it's, man, I don't know. It's insane. I stumble onto some information as to why you could be being gang stalked. Because for the life of me, as I've said, I can't sit here and come up with logical explanations as to why one would be, unless, my brain would ultimately go in the direction government based, and you're getting into information that you shouldn't be privy to, or similar situations like that, or you become a thorn in someone's side. But like for me, logically, it makes far more sense that gang stalking would be perpetrated by law enforcement, government agencies, those type of scenarios. Because like I said, I've read cases of families doing it to each other, local communities doing each other. But like I said before, that to me, there needs to be a clear-cut line. You can't, do they know what they're doing? Are they doing it just to be assholes? Right? Where a group of friends is like, let's excommunicate this friend. Let's be assholes to him. To me, that's different than gang stalking, than what we're talking about here. So anyways, apparently you could be subject to gang stalking for years and years and not even know it. One guy said it took him over 30 years to finally realize he was being stalked. One thing he points out is how in today's world, it's not uncommon to deal with a bunch of bullshit, i.e. obnoxious bullying managers, work colleagues, rude sales staff, basically all things that frequently inconvenience you. Well, it's that way, it seems, by his description. It also does clearly seem like there are a few different types of gang stalking. As I've said, the way I read it, you piss off family members, coworkers, local business owners, and those said people decide to take matters in their own hands to make your life miserable. But like I said, it for me, especially after the talking the way that I am and trying to understand it, to me there's two different boxes there. You cannot put normal everyday people in that gang stalking box, in my opinion, because I don't think that they're doing it with this conspiratorial side of it like everybody thinks there is. And then you have situations where an unknown group will harass normal citizens into harassing other normal citizens. So this gets a little fucking crazy. And for me, it definitely hits on the conspiracy side of things. So the way I was reading it, interpreting it, is that it's more or less like, someone came to me and was like, hey, Steve's a disgrace to this country, or Steve's a menace. And they try to give you some reason that will most likely motivate you to start acting in a gang stalking situation, or to take part in their situation, which is a whole, like, almost like chess moves. Like, they're keeping themselves back here safe, and they are enticing people to do the gang stalking for them, or they are bullying these people into doing the gang stalking for them. So then it, like kind of how we've talked, Steve, it's almost like they keep the muddy waters muddy for a reason.
Yeah.
Because they don't want any trails coming, and not to mention they want the end product for you to look fucking crazy.
And it goes so far that some victims of gang stalking go as far as like they think that there are these complex systems of people that are financed by the government that employ civilian volunteers, government agents, sometimes like ex-convicts and felons and shit, to go out and harass specific people, like for whatever reason. They talk about psychotronic torture, where the people believe that they've been implanted with a brain's transmitter, where
It's like that voice to skull.
where they can essentially eavesdrop on people's thoughts, where they think that their stalkers will sit outside in vans and shit and can read their minds. There are ones who think that their family members, like you said, are not just in it to make them make their lives miserable, but that their family members are actually in on the government side.
Gotcha.
They're like perpetrators of this shit.
Fuck, that sucks.
And if you look up Morgellons disease, have you ever heard of that? Oh my god, dude, it is crazy. Apparently, people who suffer from gang stalking have started getting this Morgellons disease. And this Morgellons disease, more or less, are people who get these odd fibers under their skin. They feel it tingling, they feel it itching, almost like electricity is going through their skin, and they'll do self-at-home surgeries and actually remove these weird fibers from under their skin. There's a YouTube channel. I can't remember where it is.
Is there a scientific explanation to these fibers? Like the body, say the body is responding to stress, and for some reason that's a byproduct.
I don't think so.
So it's just like an unknown fiber, which, to be fair, could actually be a result of what they're dealing with.
It is so weird. Let me Google it and see if I can find some
Because
shit.
if there is no scientific explanation, like that being, because they should be able to test those fibers. They should be able to. They may not know why those fibers are being created, but they know what they're made of, and in something.
It's actually on the Mayo Clinic, mayoclinic.org, which is like a legit disease control fucking website. Morgellons disease, managing an unexplained skin condition. Morgellons disease is an unexplained skin condition. Here you'll find blah, blah, blah. Morgellons disease is a condition characterized by a belief that parasites or fibers are emerging from the skin. People with this condition often report feelings as if something's crawling or stinging their skin. The intense itching and sores associated with Morgellons disease can severely interfere with the person's quality of life. That's why it's tied to gang stalking. If
there you go.
They're subjected to this, their quality of life just diminishes, which seems to be the end game of gang stalking. Some healthcare providers recognize the condition as a delusional infestation and treat it with antidepressants and antipsychotic drugs, cognitive behavioral therapy and counseling. Others think the symptoms are related to an infectious process in the skin cells. Further study is needed. So it's enough to where it's on the site. It's CDC recognized.
Right.
But they just don't know what it is.
They don't know what it is, or even more so, what causes that.
Yeah.
So they need to look into it more.
People pulling this shit out from underneath their skin.
That is fucking bizarre.
That's what I'm saying.
That's weird, man.
There was a YouTube channel where the guy does surgery on himself, and
It's like little black fibers.
it's weird, right?
It is weird.
Almost like an ingrown hair, kind of.
Almost.
But these people think that they have been prone. Some people think it's from chemtrails and shit.
Huh?
Could cause this. But it's bizarre, man.
That is weird.
Yeah.
Huh. I'll be damned. Learn something new. I don't wish that on anybody, though, because that'd probably be pretty shitty to deal with.
And the fact that, like, you are, whether it's happening or not, you're believing it's happening.
Yeah.
You're to the point to where you're opening your own skin and you're pulling out what you think is something that was put on you by people who are trying to ruin your lives. And if you go to the doctor, they're like, Well, we're first going to put you on some antidepressants and try to level it out there. Where in your mind, you're like, what in the fuck? Like, I'm pulling...
I'm not depressed, asshole.
I'm pulling strings out of my skin that my enemies put there.
Man. Yeah, because really chew on that, too. Like, really put yourself in that person's shoes. You believe you're being followed. You believe you're being eavesdropped on. And then you believe what like you said, and maybe you really are pulling things out of your skin. But regardless, you're fucking pulling things out of your skin that aren't supposed to be there.
Something's fucked up.
Imagine that mentally. Because, like, we'll imagine it that it is actually someone putting things in your skin. Imagine living with that. Waking up knowing somebody or something is putting shit inside you for whatever fucking reason.
Yep. And like that YouTube channel, that guy is doing
Sanitary?
no anesthetic.
Oh, fuck.
Cutting his skin open and pulling shit out of it.
That is
and documenting
terrible.
Him and his, I'm assuming it was his wife. I watched some, I forget who it is, some YouTube channel that always does like the dark side of YouTube, and that was one of them, and I was like, holy shit. Vice.com did an excellent, they did a documentary, and they did a whole study on gang stalking, and I just want to read this little excerpt here. It says, in the study of 1,040 self-defined victims of stalking filled out an anonymous questionnaire on a website offering advice and support. 128 of the respondents reported group stalking. Their complaints were vivid cross-section of gang stalking allegations, including reports of, quote, teams of men in black vans, everyone in the street being plants acting out roles toward the victims, more than 1,000 people being involved, use of voice-to-skull messages, witchcraft focused through gold objects, organized electronic mind interference, and categorized by the researcher under bizarre. One reported a docile family dog being replaced by an exact double of the dog with a foul temper.
What the fuck?
And people reporting remote enlargement of bodily organs causing health problems.
Wow.
Could you imagine?
No.
Could you imagine living your life and in your brain, in your everyday life, there is a sect of people out there that have caused you so much harm and trauma, whether they're real or not, that you think that they cloned your dog to make it more angry toward you.
That sucks. Like, real talk, that sucks.
And nobody believes you, because if I was like, Kyle, so the local police department, remember when I filed that complaint against them? They just went off on a tirade like I am public enemy number one. You know what they did this week?
What'd they do?
They replaced Frank with an angry Frank.
Man, I'm gonna be real with you. I don't know how the fuck I'm gonna take that one.
Like,
you'd have to do some fucking proving to me.
It's so sad because it's like real to them in their everyday life.
Yeah, for sure. and to clarify here, we're not saying that every case of gang stalking is a mental illness.
No. And
okay? Like I don't want that to be misinterpreted by any means.
So I hate this, that I cannot find any information on this specific case because I remember reading about it.
Steve has told me about it.
I remember looking it up on the internet. There may have even been YouTube videos about it. But this man, I can't remember where he was. I'm thinking it was in California. He got into an altercation with his local police department, and they set off an absolute terror for this guy. He was video filming them sitting in vans outside of his house. They were just doing all kinds of shit to make him seem off the wall crazy. He even made a YouTube video and posted it. He said that if I die, this police department is responsible. So much so that there was work being done outside of his home, and he thought that those contractors were part of it, and that they were tunneling under his house and all this shit. And I want to think that the guy ended up being killed, and I don't know if it was an actual, like, I may be getting too confused. One of them got hit with a shotgun blast that came from beneath his floor.
Which is sus.
Yeah, especially when he said, hey, these guys are in on it.
They're digging under my
house. And the other guy ended up being completely killed, and I'm pretty sure it was the one that had the police department. But I have looked, I have Googled, I have DuckDuckGo'd. I cannot find that fucking case anywhere on the internet. When Kyle started talking about doing this, I'm like, dude, you have to see this one. This is what gang stalking is.
Yeah, that's my interpretation of it as well.
And it's just like holy shit. Like it's real. But
the waters are fucking muddy.
Yeah. And it's almost like gang stalking paints such a broad picture, such broad strokes, that people who are suffering from schizophrenia, that go out looking for answers on the internet,
I didn't even think about that.
They kind of fall into this world where everything that's happening to them, the voices in their head, all of this stuff can fall under this umbrella of gang stalking, which again just almost helps the actual gang stalkers,
right,
to where it can be written off as mental illness.
Right. And then, to be fair, on the other side of that coin, what if these motherfuckers aren't crazy and somebody really is shooting voices into their fucking head? Because how many times we heard shit like that?
I know. I know.
You know, like,
it's fucked
and
up.
To imagine being in their shoes. Because I know exactly how I would feel about myself. I would almost undoubtedly know I'm going crazy. Even if I wasn't going crazy, even if somebody was using voice to skull on me, I would be convinced that I'm fucking going crazy.
Yeah.
And then you're going to go and get evaluated, and then it's going to be put on record that you're a paranoid schizophrenic, and you're going to have to take medication. But then everybody is almost undoubtedly going to find out that you have a mental illness now, which in the end makes that team win. You know, the ones that are trying to discredit you.
It is so weird, man.
You know, and I go into it a little bit here where you have that side of gang stalking with, you know, what would be considered locals and what have you, and then you have a more government law enforcement, which Steve kind of touched on here with that one story you were talking about. But you know, a person could end up on some type of watch list for various reasons. They will start to do harassment. It could be revenge, retaliation, a form of silencing, harming or controlling the victim. You know, with this, you'll notice things starting to happen. A pattern begins to emerge. You know, you're starting to be followed. You noticed vehicular surveillance outside your home or on the roads that you frequently travel. All this in conjunction with getting strange phone calls or just other really bizarre, strange coincidences, and that starts to compile itself together. And apparently there are even more layers to this, as one can imagine. It's insanely hard to prove any gang stalking to the authorities. But when the powers that be start using what they call dark psychology and tactics of that nature, it furthers the almost impossibility of proving to anyone that you are being gang stalked. And apparently there are experts in the field of dark psychology and gang stalking which say supernatural speculation on dark mind control manipulation techniques as explained by the inner creation of metaphysical and occult forces. Not only can the occult come into play, but they also can use modern technology to harass you. They can use RF weaponry like microwave auditory effect. They use this to constantly badger the person, insult them, keep them sleep deprived, and most importantly, keep them terrified. Imagine just that one alone there, keeping them sleep deprived. Imagine what that fucking does to a person.
Oh yeah,
That in itself will form psychosis.
Yeah, yeah. Especially like if the voice of skull and them pumping microwaves or EMF waves into your head where you can't.
I mean, even when you just watch Ghost Adventurers and shit, when there's high levels of EMF present, that can fuck with you.
Yep.
You know, and I didn't even think about that until now.
Yep.
But apparently through RF methods, you can unknowingly be recruited to be a gang stalker. They start hiding RF cues in the environment that can trigger you almost like a code word. So it's almost like a whole like Winter Soldier type situation. One example that's pretty insane to me is these perpetrators of gang stalking will constantly be checking their cell phones, specifically checking the open Wi-Fi hotspot list. And why do they do this? Well, they can use fake Wi-Fi SSIDs to be converted into messages to the stalkers, because they will, these will leave no trace. There's no text message trace to these messages. Now it's just,
it is such the whole community of the whole gang stalking community is almost like its own worst enemy. It's like this echo chamber where everything that happens, people that live normally mundane, ordinary lives will come in here and get in this community and start talking about things that would seem ordinary and mundane, and then it turns into something that it's not. You know what I mean?
right.
Like, oh, my garden hose was missing out of my tool shed last week. Well, it was probably your gang stalker. Or I was driving to work this week and I saw 3 cars that were missing a left tail light. It's probably your gang stalkers. And it goes forward to, like, they even say that the gang stalking Wikipedia page is heavily guarded as part of the plot to, like, keep the actual information of gang stalking down. Like, they try to edit it and it'll be changed. Example I sent you, that another podcast was talking about gang stalking, and it kind of wasn't falling into the narrative where the supposed gang stalking victims wanted it to fall. So then they put out that this podcast was actually ran by government officials set forth to discredit gang stalking. This podcast had like 600 episodes out, and they talked for like 30 minutes about gang stalking. And in the whole world of gang stalking,
you're out.
That was the whole ploy. The whole plan was to garner this great big audience, 600 episodes worth of listeners, to release one 30-minute episode to
that seems a little illogical to me.
So
I don't really like that.
it's the mentality is so, like, it's so back and forth.
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, if you think, I mean, look at what I went through when I thought DC number was real. I mean,
exactly.
Bro, I was stressed the fuck out, man.
That's the first.
I was stressed the fuck out.
That is the first thing I thought of, was us going with Egress when we were so worried and so paranoid that they were watching us, they were listening to us. If we would have went to any of our friends that, like, aren't privy to our podcast world, and we told them what the fuck was going on,
you're crazy.
That's what they would have said.
Yeah, 100%.
When you would have been like, there was somebody
100%.
somebody in an SUV watching Shauna, and
they would have said you're crazy.
There's people bouncing off of your Wi-Fi and shit.
That shit don't happen.
That
shit don't happen?
Isn't that fucking terrible?
Yeah, 100%, man. And, like, and I'm glad that I remembered that and we brought that up because it is like us living a form of it in a way. Even if DC wasn't real, if it was just a fucking ploy to fuck with me, like it still gave me real life anxiety and real life stress and wondering,
It's it says it like this is perfect because we had this conversation. It says gang stalking beliefs eventually cause distrust, which distrust evolves into paranoia.
Oh, 100%.
We had that conversation. I said I have to talk to you because I can't trust anybody else about this.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
It would be so entirely easy to spiral to that point, having one simple thing happen in your life.
Yep.
Having one bad day where multiple things compile on top of one another and you're like, this cannot be happening to me. My life cannot be this bad today. This has to be organized by somebody else.
Right.
And then you start putting the puzzle pieces into the puzzle that doesn't really exist, but in some cases does exist.
Yeah.
Which makes it worse because now you don't fucking know.
Exactly. You don't know the direction because I'm gonna get through this shit real quick and then we'll kind of break into it a little bit. But throughout my research, I start to kind of more or less catch wind that gang stalking could also be connected to satanic things, which in a way makes perfect fucking sense. Alongside sounding insane at the same time, but apparently and this I'm gonna see if this hits you like it kind of hits me. But apparently some TIs, targeted individuals, they know this as gang stalking itself as quote unquote the game or the games, which I know I'm not 100% sure where to put it, but I know we've come across that term a couple times, the game or the games or the like in the you did the episode son of a bitch. It was where they were basically kidnapping the kids, the Finders cult.
Oh yeah.
Well, then they call him like the game master or some bullshit like that.
Yep, 100%.
And then wasn't there a message alluding to egress about almost along the same fucking lines? It was that Reddit post you found. I want to say there was something similar in that post as well.
Yeah. Damn, I wish I remember what that was.
But more or less, what I'm trying to get at is that we've heard similarities to this right here. And apparently, this whole method of madness gets used frequently within ancient and secret societies, and that they're still being used to gather intelligence on a target that is perceived to have integrity or righteous individuals are considered impossible to predict, control, or corrupt. They also have a special destiny, which then I wrote, enter Holosky.
Here we go.
Apparently, one guy even attributes it to way the fuck back. And he is able to find similarities within people from within the Bible. And that the program, the same types of programs are being ran today. And I liked the way he made this. And he said instead, back then, instead of using tech-based weaponry like your voice to skull or your RF or EMF or whatever the fuck it is, they used witchcraft back then to mitigate.
That was one of the things that I touched on, using witchcraft through gold objects and shit.
Yep. Yeah. Which, dude, I mean, it makes perfect fucking sense. If all that shit is real, it makes perfect sense.
Yep.
Which would mean that there would be two forms of gang stalking. It would be the governmental based ones, the ones that are using the RF, the ones that are using the EMF and the voice to skull. And then there could still be secret society versions that are still relying on witchcraft based tactics.
Oh, that's even worse.
Yeah.
There's no digital footprint or evidence left from that.
Right. And in that one, you almost banked that they almost regardless achieve their goals.
Yeah.
And that's and to kind of summarize all of it, I still can't make sense of why a random person would be targeted as outside of an MK Ultra style experiment. Some asshole, whether it's at a university or a government program, doing psychological research. You know, almost like, because you've heard of like, I don't know if it was the Soviets or whomever, but they did the sleep deprived test, and they would have individuals sign up for these things. They maybe not, maybe they were taken, I don't know, but research in whatever degree that you want to put it under, or you have the people like / unlike me and Steve that may or may not get into some type of information that we're not supposed to be into. And then what would be a better way? Because there's obviously a million different ways to go about stripping that information from us. You could kill us, but that maybe make too much of a fire. You could make us look crazy, put the work in, gang stalk us, make us look crazy to everyone else, and then everyone else, they'll just leave us anyways. Which then in themselves, even if we had the papers sitting right in front of us saying, yeah, we have proof of the 1947 Roswell crash right here. It is here. We have it. We have the signed military redacted documents. But no one's going to believe you or believe us because we've already been made out to be crazies. Yep. They're just going to be like, Kyle and Steve are nuts. Like, those guys are off their rockers. We're not listening to them anymore. They suck.
Yep.
You know? But to things outside of that, I can't understand. But in the end, for the way my brain, it has to be almost a government-based program. I can't get past that in my own head. Now, I'm not saying it's not possible for someone to get me there. I'm just saying in my way of thinking, it's hard for me to get past that.
Yeah. It's so hard to, like, I don't know, differentiate the two almost.
Yeah.
Because, like, most victims of gang stalking live mundane, just everyday lives, you know, except that the kid running the McDonald's drive-thru is a covert government official that's out to try to read his mind as he's picking up his Big Mac, you know?
And hey, I'm going to tell you right now, that is not out of the realm of possibility, because look what they did during MK Ultra. They went into whorehouses and hired prostitutes to fuck with people. So it is not out of the realm of possibility.
Operation Midnight.
Yes, it was. Yeah,
I can't think of it.
But that is it.
I'm gonna touch on a touchy subject here.
Okay.
I know people. It's a fire trigger subject, but it is tied into this. Right?
Oh yeah. Okay. Now I know where you're going now.
Yes. So trigger warning. We're gonna talk about some mass shootings that are tied in to a targeted individual website. We're not taking any stance on it. It is just
information.
So in 2016, Gavin Long shot and killed 3 people in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He was online a lot. He went by a name Cosmo something, but he talked about being a targeted individual. He talked about the government and the military just making his life absolutely terrible. And if you go to the New York Times, I'm pulling up a New York Times article right here. It said, yet Mr. Long's attack represented at least the 3rd recent mass shooting to be associated with people who believed they were being targeted by a government conspiracy. Myron May, who in 2014 shot 3 people at Florida State University, left behind videos in which he meticulously described his experience of being gang stalked and many members of the movement believe that Aaron Alexis, who killed 12 people at the Washington Navy Yard, also identified as a targeted individual.
I remember that one.
I do too. On the Vice article, again, they touched on the same thing, the Washington Navy Yard in 2013, who, like Long, now this is different information, said all three had contacted an anti-stalking association, PAX International, People Against Covert Torture and Surveillance. So all three of them had contacted.
Basically looking for help, more or less.
Yes. So, like, is there something to that?
Well,
or is... Because, I mean... I don't know, dude. It's weird.
Well, here's the way I look at it. If people can get behind the JFK assassination and believe that to be a cold-blooded conspiracy, where is the mass difference from the JFK assassination to this one? Right? If you're using that what's his face was basically framed, or a trigger man, you know, where they were able to manipulate him into doing that type situation.
Yeah. And like I said, we're not saying that it is, we're not saying that it isn't, we're just saying that 3 people who committed mass murder all contacted the same anti-stalking association, PAX International.
Is it the word Manchurian Candidate? Is that basically the one I'm looking for here?
Yeah.
So, yep. I mean, how could... Because what if... Well, you just look back at everything we've talked about. Like, it's all... The entirety of the attacks are on the human psyche. It's on your ability to process what's going on around you.
It's just it's essentially just a bid to make you go crazy, drive you insane.
Absolutely.
Like there's even a thing that the gang stalking world calls mimicking, where the gang stalking victim believes that everyday strangers, are dressing up exactly like and behaving exactly like them on purpose.
Okay, I'm telling you right now, if I saw motherfuckers dressing like me every day, I'm gonna be concerned.
Which if you think back to the last episode where the military guys had the mimic coming in to, they're like, what if it is some kind of like gas based fucking psychological warfare that I don't
know. Man. Like, and the more you look at it, consider it, man, it could fucking dude, it could be an evolution or a byproduct of MK Ultra.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Because the powers that be, they regular fucking scientists, not just the powers that be, but they love to try to dive into the human psyche. You know what I'm saying? That's one of the frontiers.
Use it against us.
There's that, but it's also one of the frontiers that we haven't fully uncovered the possibilities, ramifications, all of it.
Yeah.
You know, and just like the scientists do, they poke and they prod and they try to find ways to manipulate the human psyche, whether it's good or bad, right? Because you're gonna have people. Like you hear about people using psychedelics now to help them cope with death or help them cope with trauma, which is great. But with the good comes the bad as well, because they could do just the opposite. Use it instead of helping them cope, they help them fucking break.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's just one of them topics that it does get touchy.
It's
muddy waters.
It sucks because it's so night and day.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, you could have somebody go outside and their mailbox has been smashed, or even the door on their mailbox is open, and they attribute it to this gang stalking. But on the other hand, you could have a police department that is out to fuck your life up.
Dude, both scenarios suck.
Yeah.
Both scenarios suck.
It is.
Because even if you made up the whole fucking thing in your head, Well, guess
It's
what?
still real in your life.
Well, your perpetrators, whoever's gang stalking you in your head, they win.
Yeah.
And if it happens in real life and you break mentally, they win.
Yeah.
So
it would be a terrible position to be in.
Because I read account after account of people being diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, and some of them are like, I know that I'm not paranoid schizophrenic. I know that I'm not.
That would be terrible.
I know that I'm not. And then there were, to be fair, there were some that I read where I'm like, okay, either you're lying or you are paranoid schizophrenic.
It would be terrible.
It would be, man, I don't wish that upon anybody, because I wasn't even fully in those people's shoes with DC Dick. But fuck, man, like, it stressed me out. It really did.
Yeah, and that's when, like, especially during Egress, when they sent.
And imagine if I didn't have you. Imagine if I didn't have someone to vent that to.
Yeah.
If I was doing it solo, and nobody fucking believed me about it.
It would be so easy to spiral.
Fuck yeah.
When we were talking, when we were interviewing Bob, and that shit went down, and they sent him the coordinates. That fear, I imagine,
it was real.
Is what they feel every day.
It was real.
When they go outside, and even the most mundane shit.
Yeah.
Like, oh, someone laid a tree branch across my sidewalk. Well, it was the gang stalkers.
Right.
I would not want to be
No. I don't want either form. Me going full on crazy, or me getting gang stalked. I ain't trying to live that life.
You have to approach it with such, like, delicacy, because these people are living it, whether it's real or not.
Yeah. And the people, if it is some type of organization, their intellect is far superior to ours.
Yeah.
And I mean, they do that shit for a living, so it's going to be really hard to mitigate everything they're throwing at you.
And they're just out to discredit you.
Yeah, whether it's to discredit you, experiment on you. That sucks, man. That sucks.
I know we just kind of touched the surface here. I'm going to continue to try to hunt down that account where the guy was essentially killed, who was having issues with the police department.
Dude, I remember you telling me about that a while ago.
I should have saved it, but I didn't. But if I find it, I'll share it on the socials.
Or if anybody finds it, share it, please.
When people know what I'm talking about, send it our way.
Yeah, please.
But yeah, that's such a shitty subject, I guess, for people that are experiencing it.
Yeah. It's a crazy one, dude. It's one of the harder ones that we've covered so far for me to wrap my brain around, like to try to fully understand the dynamics of everything involved, because it just feels like there's a lot of moving gears. There's a lot of different things at play, and it's hard to see. Because I mean, fuck, we talk about Bigfoot on an episode. I mean, there are moving parts, sure, but it's not as, in my opinion, it's not as complex. Like even if Bigfoot's a fucking interdimensional being, like that's easier for me to comprehend than all of the aspects to gang stalking. It's really a mental struggle for me to go in and out, up and down.
Essentially, you have people that think that they are being fucked with by a group of other people who are not being fucked with by a group of other people. And then in the same room, you have people that think they're being fucked with by groups of other people who are being fucked with by groups of other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's so like it. I don't know. Like I feel a mental roadblock in my brain,
and there
it's
are
just
things
so hard.
There are things happening in Group B who are being fucked with by groups of other people that also happen in the lives of people of Group A who are not being fucked with by groups. You know what I mean?
Like I never thought about that until you just said it, and I'm like, just by odds. I mean that you have to be right.
A flat tire.
Yeah.
Group B could have a flat tire where one of their perpetrators came up and flattened all their tires on their car to make them late for work, to make them lose their job. Group A is in the same room and said, you know what? I had a flat tire last week. And by like confirmation bias, they automatically attribute that. Like, oh, I had the same experience.
Yeah.
And it just further pushes Group A into that world.
Fuck. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
It's awful. It just promotes itself and just fires itself up.
Yeah.
And there's nobody there to separate Group A from Group B.
Yeah, just let it consume themselves.
Because Group A is living is living the same kind of torturous life that Group B is living when it's like not really happening.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
I don't know. It's
like you word it like that and it sounds like a giant fucked up experiment.
Yeah, it's terrible. That's such a rough topic to talk about because
It's a hard one.
I'm not trying to discredit anybody.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I'm just trying to understand and wrap my brain.
Bro, that is exactly where I'm at. That's why I wanted to talk about it. That's why I brought it to the table. Because I want to understand the different angles to that subject.
Because we know, because there is proof that it does happen.
Exactly.
It is a real thing.
Exactly. And we don't, at the same time, you know, in talking to some of these people, we also don't want to be the catalyst that pushes them over the edge, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't want them. We don't want to push somebody to do something extremely drastic.
Yeah. And when
that is not warranted at all.
We are not in a position to confirm or deny anybody's experience with gang stalking.
No. And we are not proficient in mental health.
No.
Our mental health is questionable.
Yes. Our own mental health.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Our health.
So, I mean, we are here trying to understand
That's
with
it.
all of you too.
That is it. Like, I just took it as a learning experience for all of us, and maybe it'll open up some chatter here and there. You know, it is what it is. I just feel like we should cover the topic. We talked about it, and everybody needs to be a little bit better informed on some of these topics.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, not just us.
I agree. So on that note, check us out at all our social medias: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Discord, and Reddit. Come and hang out with us. Search up the Holosky Podcast. And until we meet again, stay safe, stay weird, and just because you're paranoid does not mean that they're not out to get you.